item on the agenda is the budget overview. Who is starting?
I'm starting. Good morning, council. Good morning, Mayor. I want to start the presentation first by thanking the staff that has spent hours and hours putting this budget together. This is the most important document we put together all year long. I want to especially thank Gina Thompson. You know, Gina probably works every weekend putting in extra hours to put this document together in June and July. This is the 24th year that we've received the Distinguished Budget Award. This is an award that the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association, awards each year, and it's really based on your budget presentation, but also the fact that your budget focuses on the council priorities and goals. So again, Gina, thank you so much for all your hard work and helping us get this award one more time. This year we want to look at the budget in just a little different way. So last November we were at the National League of Cities, and several of us sat through a presentation on priority-based budgeting. And I know that the mayor and Councilman Ferguson were very impressed with that process, and I came back and Gina and I put our heads together and we talked a great deal about it. And in a sense, a lot of what is in priority-based budgeting is also in our budget system. Not to the detail that is found in priority-based budgeting, but I think sometimes we presented the budget on a more of an incremental measure where we truly look at just the change from year to year rather than what we're achieving in total with the budget. So I want to spend a little bit of time this morning going through the budget development process briefly, and then a budget analysis by city council priority. That really, when the departments put their budgets together, they're very focused on the priorities established by the council, and I wanted to go back and talk about that a little bit. Then we'll go through the budget analysis by fund, as we normally do, general fund, utility fund, and then other significant funds. So to talk briefly about the type of budgeting we do have a program budget. It was established by Chuck Owens back in the 1980s. We've changed very little of that focus. We do look at spending proposals in terms of services they are intended to provide to citizens. We start each year, the departments are given a target number, which is less than their current level or current year budget. So they're really forced to go back and absorb inflationary costs, salary increases that occur in the year, and to really analyze what's most important in the budget process. And as I said, they are guided by city council established priorities and goals. The priorities that we still are working on and focused on were actually established back in 2000. They have had some modifications over time. But we link any new or expanded program to those budget priorities, very much like you would see in a priority-based budgeting system.
Before you go on, let me just interrupt. Council need to tell you that if for any reason one of you needs to leave, excuse yourself or something, if you'll please let me know, we'll take a recess, because we would not have a quorum if you don't. Thank you.
This year was somewhat different than prior years in that we had Vision 2025 goals to also take into account. So one thing that we know we need to do now that the council has officially adopted the Vision 2025 plan is to go back and reassess these priorities and goals in terms of Vision 2025. Our staff will be focused on a planning process in September. We'll dive in and look more closely citywide at 2025. And then hopefully we're going to be able to find sometime in October to come back to you and look more closely at the priorities and goals with council and make changes where they need to be made. The budget submitted to you, the preliminary budget, consists of the target number base budget that I talked about earlier, plus the new requests that have been included by the city manager's office. Those programs that come in that I spoke of earlier roll up into activities, and activities roll up into the department budgets. As we look at the budget on a activity basis, the difference you would find in a priority-based budget is it would actually drill in further. It would really drill down to programs. We really don't have that data without a great deal more work, but it is something that we can talk about in the future. Your budget is actually composed of 25 funds. Historically, we focused just on the general fund and utility fund because that is the bulk of the dollars, but you do have 25 different funds. And those 25 different funds contribute a great deal. As you know, we've gone to the public and asked them to pass sales tax elections, 4B for our parks programs, crime control and fire control, and that has given us a great deal more flexibility actually in your general fund. So if you look at all the programs in total, there's actually $114,398 dollars worth of programs that have been distributed throughout the departments. Here, just as a refresher, Council, is a list of your priorities. Provide a well-developed and maintained infrastructure and meet the demand for service, control and cost of service delivery, maintain financial stability, provide opportunities for cultural and recreational activities, provide a community where citizens and visitors are safe and secure, develop the city's economic base and improve aging and substandard areas, meet your transportation and transit needs, maintain a stable, high-performance workforce, enhance the community's image and citizen involvement. I would tell you, as you look at priorities in other cities, you would see a lot of those same priorities, but I think the difference is when you start seeing how the dollars get allocated to the various priorities. So that's what we're going to do now, and what I did was we did was to put them in order of percentage spent on priority. So if you look at this, what we're telling you is that 39% of that $114 million is spent on public safety. We'll start with the police department, and you can see from this chart that Gina created that most of the money spent in the police department is on patrol. So if you look at that bar, that's patrol. It really kind of overshadows everything else that we spend in the police department on other police activities. Next, here's your fire department. Again, what you can see is the bulk of the money in the fire department, $15 million. That's spent on fire suppression. Those are your guys that are out responding to fire calls and EMS calls. We also have health and code here, the folks that go out and inspect your restaurants, animal control, making sure the dangerous animals are taken off the streets, fire prevention, going out and trying to make our businesses and homes safer, and legal services. They make me feel a lot safer, I know that. And then, of course, your municipal court, teen court, and court operations in general. Second area where we spend the most money is investing in your infrastructure. 31% in total is spent on investment in infrastructure. So you can see here that this is, of course, not only your general fund and the other funds, but your utility fund. And as we'll talk about later, Steve will talk about in the utility fund, it's always been and always will be very capital intensive. So here's over $7 million spent on water production. Here's water and wastewater maintenance, $439. But this also includes your facilities maintenance, all the buildings in the city. And here's ITS, your technology infrastructure over time has tended to cost the city more and more as more and more of our operations are technology dependent. I will tell you, if the system goes down, we all start looking around going, what do we do now? Because we are very, very dependent citywide in a variety of different ways. We also, and the council has always placed a priority on investing in our employees. Now remember that the salaries of those employees are found in all the other priorities that I will mention, because we are a service organization. So the delivery of service is through people, so those salaries are distributed. But what you see here is the cost of your Human Resources Department. Does a great job in supporting our employees. And then all of the benefits that we spend. This blue box right here, those are now your health claims. Over $6 million now spent.
Ms. Barron, I need to ask you to skip anything to do with the health fund or the insurance fund, because I'll have to abstain, and at that time, we would not have a quorum.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you, Mayor. The next priority deals with providing opportunities for cultural and recreational activities. 10% of your overall funds are spent on this particular priority. So this includes basically your park system, your library, here's your park maintenance. Here's Toyota of Louisville Railroad Park, fairly high expenditure. Your MCL Grand is on this chart. So again, a total of 11 million, or 10% of your total resources are spent on cultural and recreational activities. Next, 4% is spent on developing the city's economic base and improving aging and substandard areas, not so much infrastructure, but areas of your city. So here's where you find code enforcement, and also your economic development operation, and your tourism operation, which is certainly geared to bringing people into Louisville and building that economic base. Controlling the cost of service delivery, 2%. You would expect to see this number kept fairly small. Here's your administrative functions, city manager's office, purchasing, treasury and collections, and environmental. This is like household hazardous waste. This is a little deceiving because it says we only spent 1% on meeting transportation and transit needs. Again, I'm focused on the operating department, or excuse me, the operating budget. If you look over at your capital budget, your CIP, you're going to find millions there that have been earmarked for the expansion of Valley Ridge, the expansion of Corporate Windhaven, so that's not included in that 1% number. Another 1%, we heard a lot from our residents in the 2025 plan about enhancing community image and citizen involvement. We do spend over $1 million citywide annually on that. That equates to only 1% though. This is your community relations activity, your special events. And I included public records, city secretary here, because they deal so much with our boards and residents as they serve on the various service boards.
On that, you've got community image and then citizen involvement. What's the breakout of the $1.3 million between the image and the citizen involvement?
Well, that's hard to answer, Mayor, because if you look at community relations, they deal with probably citizen involvement and community image both. Special events, I would tell you, deals a lot with community image, but also hits citizen involvement. So I don't know if I can really split that between the two.
So when you're talking about community image, you're not referring to any type of fiscal expenditure any type of expenditure we'd have for fiscal improvement of the looks of the city?
No, sir. Like the beautification dollars, that would be over in your PAYGO program.
Okay.
It's not here.
Okay.
You're right. There's various areas that you could actually put in different slots, but because we're at an activity level, we couldn't break it out further.
That's fine.
If I was at an activity level or a program level and not an activity level, then I could have broken it down
Right.
more like you were asking.
That's okay, I just wanted to understand, make sure.
1% is spent on maintaining financial stability. Certainly, this is the operation that supports our mayor and council, general finance, and accounting. My device is confused. Excuse me?
Oh,
What I want to do now is to look at just the new programs by the same priority, so you can see that the additions that have been made to your budget this year in terms, again, of council priorities. So this, we're spending the most money, a little over 7 million, 10 million if you include CIP, on investment in our infrastructure. And Mayor, this kind of gets to your question about the beautification, because that number is really found up in this 10 million CIP. So here's the money that you can see spent on facilities, technology. You can see it coming in from the different funds. Equipment, the hotel motel fund, I believe that's all related to Park Plaza. And then your street and concrete repair, or your PAGO system, at 3.74 million. I'm not going to spend a lot of time telling you the details here, because we'll get into those details when we actually get into the separate funds. Here's more the project dollars that are spent on investment in your infrastructure. As we said earlier, a lot of money is always going to be spent on the utility fund operation. So this year, we do plan on painting the elevated storage tank over on Valley Parkway. That costs $1.2 million. Steve will tell you a little bit later about the story behind this very expensive generator at $1.2 million. And then, as always, a great deal of investment with equipment in the utility fund at $2.1 million. Second here, we plan or are proposing to spend $2.8 million, again, on public safety. So here's your EMS captain. Melinda's going to talk with you about that a little later, as well as expanding our ability to patrol our neighborhoods, additional new equipment for our fire department. You see the different funds now coming in to support fire and public safety operations. The fire station number 6 expansion, the potential moving of Station 3 relocation to provide for faster response time. The Lucas CPR devices, which I know Tim's talked to us a great deal about, he believes are really life-saving devices. They're being purchased through your risk fund and your fire services fund. So a great deal of support for public safety coming from other funds other than your general fund, as had been done in the past. Opportunities for cultural and recreational activities for residents and visitors, $236,000 in new projects are being spent here. Just a couple that I wanted to point out, things that Jim's come up with for your MCL grant. He wants to add a live comedy series. That's coming out of your Community Activities Fund, which really is, by and large, coming from economic development agreements that Nika's gone out and gotten for us, or naming rights. So there's your comedy series and a new holiday movie series that would be shown at actually the Park Plaza is the plan for that one. We'll talk a great deal about the litter abatement and creek access program a little bit later. Steve's going to provide additional information for you there. As always, the council's placed a high priority in investment in our employees. So $1.7 million is spent on investing on our existing employees. So $1.3 million on the compensation plan. Melinda will talk about that in more detail later. Again, I'm going to skip that one. And training, a great deal of dollars spent on training. And again, some of this money coming from your other funds. Your police and fire training fund now supporting over $25,000 in providing new training to police supervisors. The chief talked some to us about he has new supervisors, and he wanted to invest in development of those folks. Developing the city's economic base and improving aging in substandard areas. Top on the list is the addition of a neighborhood services coordinator. Eric will talk with you about that a little bit later in more detail. This comes directly out of your 2025 vision plan. Code abatement, something that Cleve talked to you at a former or prior retreat. This helps with fence removal and those things that are necessary to abate various code issues. This item, $100,000, is budgeted in relation to your facade improvement program related to the Park Plaza. These are those agreements that we have with the various business owners so that the city actually owns that property up to the back of the building. This is a plug number. We don't know what that number will be in the end. You have an economic development policy that sets the maximum, I believe, at $40,000 per improvement based on that application. And fire sprinkler system for Old Town, we're going to talk about this later. This is actually an item that I had hoped to bring to you earlier in a workshop, but we've had some other issues like I-35 that took its place. And so we want to talk generally about it today. I wanted it in the budget so that we can move forward with funding, but a lot of the details will still be worked out with the business owners in the Old Town area. Meeting transportation needs. This is your PAYGO system, part of that PAYGO system at 365. Again, you've got a lot of money spent on transportation. It's just sitting out in CIP. Enhancing community image and citizen involvement, $161,000 in new monies spent on this area. Again, directly related to your Vision 2025 process. Here's a communications audit where we'll actually bring in a third party that will go in and analyze what we do now and figure out if we're spending our money in the best ways to reach and educate the public. They'll also look at our existing brand and tell us how we might better use that brand to produce or project the city's image that we desire. Mobile application, this goes hand in hand with the city's website. Very popular, though, now for people to do all their business on these things. So that will give the city more ability to communicate with our public via a very popular technology. Citizens University, it's a small dollar amount, but it's one of my favorite items. This is a Julie Heinze project, and she's going to be supporting or creating something similar to what police do and fire do in their academies, but we want to do it in general for all citizens. What we found as we went through 2025 was that very often residents don't understand some very basic things about what we do. So Julie's working on creating a citizens university so that people can be exposed to more areas of the city. Cattle Drive Parade enhancement. We are bringing back the parade to Western Days this year. That was driven by our mayor, who missed it very much, so we're bringing it back for him. And we're going to be adding enhancements to that parade, and it's like walking, what do you call those, James?
Walking floats.
Yeah, walking floats, and James will have to explain more of that to you, but I'm sure the kids will absolutely love it. Controlling cost of service delivery, $160,000 spent on this item. This energy efficiency improvement Carol's team put together, and those in general is putting a lot of LED lights throughout the organization to save on electrical cost. This is a GPS system that's supported by a variety of funds in the city. One thing we hope to achieve with the new GPS system would be better utilization of our vehicles that are out driving on a daily basis so that we can reduce mileage and improve efficiencies. Document imaging is certainly a savings. Here's 2 part-time clerks literally helping us to get all of the existing records into the system so that we can get rid of all the hard copies. Maintaining financial stability, $34,000. Nika is going to spend some more money on economic development marketing. We'll improve our workers' comp claims management system and various other items to improve financial stability and controls. I also wanted to spend a few minutes talking about your budget in view of the 2025 plan specifically. These items that are listed here total $1.5 million. They are all specifically driven by your 2025 plan. Everything from cleaning the creeks, better utilizing your natural assets, called extending the green in your plan, improving your neighborhoods, funding to improve the Citizens University. Again, that's your image and citizen involvement. So all of these items in one way or another are specifically related to Vision 2025. I also wanted to talk a little bit about items that are underway or projects that are underway that I think the council should keep in mind as you look at this year's budget and you consider your tax rate. One is the appointment of your Blue Ribbon Capital Investment Project or Committee, and we are going to be asking you to appoint that committee in September. The departments have already been very hard at work in developing the projects for them to consider. They've been so hard at work that they've generated $370 million worth of potential capital needs. Now, don't get worried. There was a similar number back when we did the 2003 plan, and in the end, $68 million was actually sold for that plan. So we will be looking at various funding options for the Blue Ribbon program, including GEO bonds, as well as stormwater and other means of funding these capital projects. As you know, the I-35 expansion project is underway. Eric and Nika have spent a lot of time literally doing a total assessment of everything going up and down the corridor. They can tell you what buildings are leaving, what buildings are staying. They're doing outreach to all of the businesses to try to make sure we're relocating those that we can somewhere else in our community. But there may be some needs if you think about Vision 2025. It talked about identity focal points along I-35, and that may create some need for land banking as we move forward. Also, once we completed the retreat with the council and we knew you were supportive of most of the items in your Vision 2025, we started meeting with UNT related to the green centerpiece that, in my opinion, is the heart of your Vision 2025 program. Those negotiations, I think, have been very successful. I was hoping to have a signed agreement with you today for the city's takeover of the Leela property. I will tell you that we're close enough that I have it now in your budget. Property availability review as we go forward. One of the tenets of your Vision 2025 plan is to extend the green. So as we look at floodplain areas that may be privately owned as such, and something that might be useful to the public as far as trails, we will be going to you and asking for consideration of purchasing some of those projects potentially. Finally, I wanted to talk a little bit, and this is more related to some of the changes in the organizational structure. You notice we don't call Gina the budget director anymore. We call her the strategic services director. So she's going to be focusing this next year on a review and analysis of various operations. She does have her team. Lance is here somewhere. Where are you, Lance? He's making copies. He's not here. Lance and Michael. And so we've got a team. Where's Michael? Oh, there's Michael. Wait, raise your hand, Michael. So this team will be actually going in and working with the departments. And in relation to Vision 2025, we want to especially spend time on Parks and Leisure Services and Library Services. Especially your park system will have a lot of new challenges. So much of the focus of 2025 is being green and outdoor activities and such. So we'll be looking at that area very closely this next year. So the bottom line message that I'm conveying this morning to you is big moves will require a focused use of existing resources. With that, we'll get specifically into the general fund, and Gina's going to do a review. She's going to start on a review of your revenue. Do you want the,
Okay, so we'll start with the fiscal year 13-14. Can you hear me? 13-14 revenue summary. Our revenue for the current year is actually projected to be up from budget by 4%. And on this slide, you can see the major changes to each line item, including sales tax, which we're projecting up $1 million more from budget. And I will remind you, we had a change in our sales tax for mixed beverage collections. And so approximately 200,000 of that increase is related to that new sales tax on mixed drinks. The other changes you see there are the franchise fee payment, Texas and Mexico Power, the telephone franchises, and Verizon Cable. We've also seen increases in our building permits and engineering and inspection fees. And the landfill post fee revenue was actually up, following a trend in our development fee cap. So overall, right now, in the current year, our budget to where we are today looks pretty great on the general fund side. For 14-15, we're also looking at an increase from budget last year, or this current fiscal year, of 3.7%. A lot of the same changes you're seeing up for our projections for budget 14-15, including the franchise fees as well as the sales tax. Also, our ambulance fee revenue is actually performing very well. We're doing a lot more currently. This fiscal year, it's kind of trended upward. I think it kind of goes up every year just based on the number of runs that we have.
We're still staying on that program where we keeping in touch with Medicare charges and everything, so that we're not losing. Okay.
That is one of the
Okay.
So I'll go into this general fund revenue comparison. You'll see here that the main sources of revenue there are your property tax, and that's at 33%, and that's the gray area at the bottom of the chart here. And you also have your sales tax, which is the orange, and that's at 32%. And then all the other sources of revenue account for the remaining 35%. And that is in line with our policy of trying to diversify our revenue stream so that we try to stay with a third, a third, and a third. So that looks well. The comparison, again, is up 3.7 million from where we were at budget 13-14. Here it shows your general fund revenue sources. You can see, obviously, the property and sales tax we talked about as being the main sources of revenue. Your other taxes include the franchise fee payments that we talked about, including Texas and Mexico Power and telephone cable. Then we've got the licenses and permits, charges for services, the recreation category. Your fines are there on the end, and obviously that's mainly municipal court fines and warrant fines. And then you've got transfers in miscellaneous, which include your SROs and which are your school resource officer payments from the LISD. So all of the revenue streams are performing very well. The only one that's flat and slightly down is recreation, and it's more level. It's got a couple of line items that we're a little bit concerned with, but primarily all revenue sources look good. We don't really have any one revenue source that is down for the fiscal year. We've got, like I said, the recreation few lines there are down, but overall, our revenue streams are all very well, performing well. And that's really all we have on the roll.
Which one is the waste management fee under?
It's in the charges for services.
Okay, I thought so. And we have not got anything on, but, I mean, in there for the others, because other things might occur because they have not come into play yet, right? Okay.
back on the expenditure side, Mayor, this is your general fund expenditures. You'll see the preliminary budget totals $69.3 million. No other major changes there, so I'm going to go on and turn it over to Melinda, who's going to talk to you about some of the major ongoing operation costs. What did I do? She can talk comp, just not health.
Okay, as you know, council, every year, oh, I pushed the wrong button, Steve.
Who knows how to work it? There we go.
Thank you. So every year, the Human Resources staff does a market analysis to compare our salary structure to that of 16 cities that we compare to. We have basically two pay plans. We have our police and fire public safety pay plan. Those positions, we compare to the market, we compare the top of the pay plan for each of those positions. Police and fire are all on a step pay plan. They don't move through this, they move through the step based on their tenure, but it's also based on their performance, their annual performance. This year, when we looked at the market, we were off from 2.3% to 3%. And again, we take the top of the rank for each position, and we match that to the average top of the rank for the 16 cities. So that puts us should put us in the middle of all those 16 cities. That's where we strive to be. On the general government side, we look at benchmark positions such as librarian and maintenance worker, and positions that are similar in all 16 cities regardless of the size. This year, our general government jobs were pretty much on target, so we're not moving the market. For those employees, they'll be eligible for a 3% merit increase. Again, it's they either get 3%, or if their performance is below standards, then they're not eligible for an increase for the year. Police and fire also have steps, and we have included funding for those steps in the budget. One thing it's important to note that after a police officer or firefighter has been here 5 years, in assuming that they met all their performance goals, they're at top of range, so they do not get a step increase. So the market increase that they get on October 1st is their pay increase for the year, because they're not eligible for merit since they're on a step plan. We also took a look at our IT positions. Over the last few years, the turnover rate for the IT positions is about 5 times that of the other employees. And what we see, we bring in IT people in entry-level positions, and after about a year or two, and they've gained some experience along with some certifications, then they're moving to the private sector, where the salaries are, and it's all based on salary. The salaries are just higher for those positions. So what we have proposed to do is move them to a skill-based pay just to get them to the midpoint. So that will be based on their certifications. As they get certifications, there'll be a point factor system. As they earn points, then they'll move up to the midpoint. Once they get to the midpoint, though, they have all the certifications, then they will be on the merit system to the midpoint of the range to the maximum of the range, like all other employees. So we put this year the funding in to begin that on October 1st. We will move those IT people on October 1st to the step that correlates with their certifications. And then we won't talk about health.
This next slide, Council, is your street and drainage CIP. Louisville has had a history of being able to use operating funds to invest in our infrastructure. That's something that not all cities have been able to do. And so this year, we're actually going to invest a total of $3.9 million in your infrastructure, which we think is the highest level of investment ever for this category. You can see the various categories listed: concrete street repair, $330,000 for asphalt street rehab, $747,000 for sidewalk maintenance, $300,000 for your screening wall maintenance, $400,000 for neighborhood rehab, and another $100,000 for alley rehab. Now, if you ask Carol, I think what she would tell you, if you said, could you spend more money, and she would say yes. There's certainly lots of needs in this area, and again, based on council priorities of investing in our infrastructure, we put a very high priority on it and budgeted $3.9 million here. Yes, sir, those are 4 intersections. Any other questions there? Organizational changes. The council remembers that when I was promoted, I did make some changes to the structure that I believe has worked very, very well. Another thing I talked to council about several months ago was the issue that you see listed in the last bullet point, something that we really need to be thinking of this year and in the future. 70% of your directors and managers are eligible to retire. That's a big challenge, something that we need to look at every time we have turnover in this organization, and every time we have opportunities to restructure. Here's your current organizational chart. This organizational chart actually reduced one position or converted a position to a contract position with the addition of Mr. Petty to look at economic development and special project areas. In the proposed budget, we are proposing to add 6 additional positions. 4 of those are in your general fund. Your crew leader and your maintenance worker are the ones that are focused on the creek cleanup projects that Steve will talk about a little later. We want to add a captain to EMS. That actually was a request of the chiefs to add 3 captains, but we made a decision to start with 1. That gives him some ability to get that person trained and up and operational. And then we will look at adding 2 additional captain positions later. Melinda's going to talk a little later about how we think we can fund that. Here's your neighborhood services coordinator, and then 2 positions in the utility fund that are focused on hydrant exercising and those type of facility type investments. Your recommended program changes total $2.6 million. They are detailed on your preliminary budget book on pages 13 through 16. And your expenditures fall into these major expenditures into the 4 categories listed. And Steve, I'm going to let you talk about the litter abatement program.
Thank you, Donna. At the 2025 retreat, one of the items that came out of that was to do something with creeks and drainage areas, get those areas cleaned up. So we have installed a litter abatement and creek access crew. Donna just mentioned 2 employees that will be added there. Which one up at the top? Okay. So there are 2 additional 2 members on the crew, plus some temporary workers. We will be looking at, again, litter removal is our initial program. And if you take a look at the number of creeks that we have and channels that we have in the city, you have 5 major streams, and then you have various other minor streams, drainage ditches, bar ditches, et cetera, that tend to have a lot of litter and waste, especially when we have heavy rains that transport that material to a common point in which restrictions occur, and then we get bags and trees, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what you see today in some of the areas, and this is what we're going to try to resolve in the future. This is projects. We have a lot of property since the early 90s, mid-90s, which prior to that time, the citizens or the property owners owned to the center of the creek. We just went through that with the Regency erosion program. But after that point, Eric Ferris and his group, Community Development, put in that when new developments occur, they have to donate or dedicate that property to the city on those drainage areas so we can maintain those in the future. So there's a little bit of difference. There are some private and some public areas. We have a lot of public areas. We're going to work on those first. During this time, we'll be working toward securing possibly donations of those existing private creeks and drainage areas to the city so that we can continue the program through the stormwater fee and program that we'll hopefully implement in the next year or so. This is just an example of one of the projects. This is between 121 Business and I-35 and corporate in that area, just basically south of Southwest Parkway that loops back around to Corporate Drive. You'll see the creek, both of these are in blue, but if you see the creek running through there and then you see the property outline, so it's more of a rectangle, that is city property, so we can go in there and work on that. But the properties to the left are closer to 121 Business, are privately maintained. So again, we get back to getting these improvements made with this, starting with this team. A lot of this work in clearing debris will be done in the wintertime with litter abatement and other minor improvements during the summertime due to the heavy vegetation and also the snakes and wildlife. So, yes, sir.
Down there where we've had so much problem off of Hebron,
Yes, sir.
you know those lakes down there off of Hebron?
Yes, sir.
And basically that was what I understand, what I've been told by staff, that was basically a shell company that was formed by the developer and it's no longer in existence, and so there's no way we can go after anybody. What are we doing to?
Eric, you want to preach that?
The area that Mayor's referring to is off of Hebron Parkway with the 4 or 5 lakes that are chained together around probably some 5 or 6 multifamily projects. Initially, again, as Mayor was saying, those projects were platted as lots. In other words, the lakes were platted as lots in lieu of the properties going to the center line. We've been able, through code enforcement, to link up with the Multifamily Property Owners Association, and that association has hired a company to go in there to remove litter, control the algae, mow the banks where possible, and they, although they don't own it, but they are linked to that corporation that is now, in better terms, defunct. It does not exist. So we're working fairly well, but it's limited. It's limited to those that are just mainly north of Hebron, with 1 or 2 to the south. But that's what we're currently doing on those. There are other lakes up there north in the Waters Ridge Park that the businesses mow to the bank, and they're controlling that, and there's not as much trouble up there, but there are a few down to the south, mainly behind Lake Point Shopping Center, that are virtually grown up with sedimentation and still are a problem to date.
Would there be any possibility of getting any type of grants or funding from maybe Parks and Wildlife or something, so that we created a type of a facility down there for residents to fish and enjoy that?
We can certainly explore that, Mayor. We always look at our grants that are available from the state and the feds, and so we will pay special attention to what we might be able to obtain.
Well, what I'd been told in the past was because it was private property, quote.
Correct.
But we understand the problem with that, but is there some way we can get around that, I guess is what I'm wondering, so that we can get that established, something similar to what Flower Mound has and some other cities have, where they have those big deals out there and make it where it says come in. And I think TP&W come in and stock that once a year for them.
We can certainly explore that. Some of those are legal questions we'd want to work with Liz on, but certainly it can be explored. You're right. That's really, when you think about Vision 2025 and extending the
Right.
green, that's what that's all about.
That's what I was saying. Okay, thank you.
This is some of the area, again, you can see the different, how it's grown up from the back of the apartments. If you look on the Southwest Parkway, or that area south of Southwest Parkway. And so these are things that we've hopefully improved. This is not in Louisville, but this is what we want the trails to look like in the future.
This is our vision.
This is our vision, and where you have a trail and you have some green area and you have a nature area within the urban setting. As far as the drainage projects go, we have about $62 million worth of requested drainage issues. Some of these are carrying over since the early 90s, mid-90s, and the last 2 bond issues. These are items, again, as Ms. Barron mentioned, that the Blue Ribbon Bond Committee will be looking at. There's a tremendous amount of improvements that are needed. Again, it's just the funding to get to all of these. These are some of the listings that we have to date. Timber Creek erosion and Old Orchard drainage, those areas have been completed or near completion. I believe we're working on the final punch list. Where's David? On Regency at this point. So we'll be moving into that. Several of these are under design, especially on the Metro Park and that area on Railroad Street. Some more of the additional drainage projects that you and the Blue Ribbon Bond Committee will be reviewing in the near future. And so as you can see, these add up to, again, approximately $62 million.
But all of those potentially can be used to extend the green.
With the drainage. And we want to go on to the other program change with the EMS captain.
There's not any more questions on that, Council?
One thing, to the Blue Ribbon Bond thing program, that $100-something thousand on those creeks isn't gonna go very far. I mean, it's
No.
gonna take 50 years at $100,000 to get those done. On the Blue Ribbon Bond program, I'd like to see us concentrate on putting something in that program to go through ahead and get those creeks, like you showed that one, what our vision was to be.
Okay.
So we'd expedite that so it could be done in a few years' time instead of long.
Absolutely. And you know, Mayor, one thing we talked about 2 retreats ago is your stormwater fee.
Right.
And that stormwater fee can be used to escalate and
Okay.
those projects.
That will help us out if we can get that fee in place as a continuous improvements in funding sources for this, in addition to the bond programs.
Great. Thank you.
Question on the stormwater fee, have y'all finished the parcel, what would I call it, reconciliation?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
That could be implemented whenever the Blue Ribbon Committee so recommends.
Okay.
Right, Donna mentioned earlier that we added one EMS captain position. The fire department actually requested 3 EMS captains. Currently, we have one EMS division chief, and he coordinates or supervises the EMS program, and all of our firefighters are now paramedics, and they operate 5 mobile intensive care unit ambulances, and then we have 6 paramedic engines and 1 truck that are staffed with paramedics so that when they arrive on scene, they can begin life support measures if they arrive prior to the ambulance. Part of the process of keeping all of those paramedics up to date on their training, coordinating all of their reporting, is all being done currently right now by one EMS chief, in addition to supervising the ambulance billing program. This is one of those areas where we have some concern about succession planning. Chief Reeves is here today. He is one of the very best, I would say he's one of the best EMS people in the state. Very knowledgeable. He wears many, many hats, and he's able to do many, many things for the department. By adding this captain, we'll be able to have someone work with him during 40 hours a week, assist him with all these projects, and also cross-train. Their vision in the fire department is to have one captain on each shift to be able to coordinate all these issues, to do training, to coordinate the paramedic side of all those firefighters per shift. If you have any questions or need any more details, we have Ricky here, or Chief Tittle can give you some more information. But this one position, the cost associated is for that position and for its bunker gear and protective clothing. And right now it'll be using a pool vehicle for its vehicle needs. The next, oops, I went the wrong way.
Actually, I have just kind of a quick question. if the chief's
Absolutely.
available. Chief, could you tell me how other fire departments operate when they have these types of chiefs on shift?
Are you talking about chiefs or the captains?
The EMS chief. So right now, we have one that oversees 3 shifts.
Well, yeah, sir, he actually oversees just the whole operation of our EMS division, yes.
So are there other fire departments that have your goal here, which is a chief per shift?
Other fire departments in the Metroplex that are comparable to our size are moving in the same direction that we are trying to move. They're starting to add staff. EMS is becoming such a complex division with all the mandates coming down from the state, everything that has to be managed with EMS billing, all your Medicare and Medicaid issues that go along with that, maintaining up-to-date protocols, all the training that goes along with keeping our paramedics current, and then just the everyday maintenance of ambulances, keeping our EMS stock up to par, and ordered in equipment, everything that goes along with running that division. Departments of our size are starting to see that that's more than one guy can oversee, as well as be involved in all the state level meetings that he needs to attend to keep up with everything, and then just the meetings at the hospitals with our medical control doctors and things like that. He's not available all the time to meet the day-to-day needs. So they're starting to bring on and trying to bring on extra staff to help manage that division, and that's what we're trying to do. Plus, also get some people in place in our succession planning to have some guys trained up in everything that goes on in EMS, because one of these days Chief Reeves is going to retire. I know he is, and if he were to retire, we're gonna be in a world of hurt until we can get some people trained up. So
He's saying on social media that he's never retiring. That's
well, I think you will someday. So we're trying to plan ahead for that sad day, but we need to be ready for it.
Thanks for the detail, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Believing that because it's on the internet.
And also, and I apologize, I can't remember her name, the young lady that kind of stepped in several years ago and helped get the program started on the billing and all that stuff. You know who I'm referring to? No?
No, sir.
Who was it over there? When we first went to this program, we were so far, we were lost, basically.
You talking about in EMS billing?
Yes.
Ricky, can you help me out with who you might be referring to?
Remember, there's a young lady, I think she's still there, that brought the program up to speed, and she does all the EMS billing and stuff, and she got it all back charged. We had people that hadn't paid bills and all that stuff.
Yeah, we started with, I don't remember, I think there's been turnover since the initial app.
We had Tony come in emergency time, and they were ready to come in and help us get up running. The only other person we've had you might be referring to is Charlene, but she's been.
Charlie, I bet it is Charlie.
Okay.
5 or 6 years.
Okay, Charlene was the other name, because she kind of instituted the program and got it caught up several years ago. Okay. So we've got replacements for her and stuff, and
Yes,
keeping on top of that.
we have a staff of 2 building clerks now, but I will tell you, it's always been a concern of mine. Most cities actually contract this out. We're one of the only cities that operates this ourselves, and Ricky's level of knowledge, this is one of the major reasons I was supportive of adding these captains. It's just overwhelming, the complexity
Right.
related to Medicaid and Medicare, and as Melinda said earlier, I can't say enough positive about Ricky Reeves and his level of knowledge. I mean, he gets called on a statewide basis to come out and advise other departments. So we're very fortunate, and I will tell you, I think our collection rate is higher than most cities are having with their private sector contracts. So we want to continue a focus internally with this, but I do believe we've got to start building in some backups for Chief Reeves. I happen to know that he is my age, so.
I agree.
Well, and
I have one other question.
Thank you.
EMS captain, the initial discussion on this was for the 3 captains, and then it's been pared back to 1. And the last comment down there, it says, as funding allows. I was going to ask the question until I saw as funding allows, maybe it answers the question. Was the paring down to 1 more a logistical planning decision, or was it more a budgetary decision? That last statement implies that it was entirely a budgetary consideration.
Initially, it was certainly a budgetary decision on my part, but as Chief Tittle and I talked about it, I think in the end, he thought going with the 1 first really did have advantages. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, Chief, but.
No, once we thought about it, bringing 3 on right now and putting them all on shift, and then having Chief Reeves try to try to train them individually, where he's working with one guy every day over 3 days and then turning around and starting over. The training was going to be a little bit difficult, plus him managing the duties that he currently still has to do. Bringing one on this first year, 8 to 5, and letting him shadow Chief Reeves, and Chief Reeves train with this guy, get him up to speed over this first year to where they're basically a cohesive team. Then we turn around and bring the other two on next year, and we have the two of them available, working 8 to 5, to train those other two, get them well up to speed in a short amount of time, and then put them on shift. So I think logistically, this is really going to work out in our favor by doing one this year and then bringing the other two on.
Okay.
And speaking of Chief Reeves, one of the things he brought to us this year, about a month ago, he became aware of another revenue source. It's called the Texas Ambulance Supplemental Payment Program. Basically, this is federal money that's been administered by the state, the Texas Health and Human Service Commission, and it allows the municipalities who run ambulance service to collect revenue for those runs for uninsured and Medicaid patients. This funding source has been around for a while, but it wasn't until 2012 that it was made available to municipal ambulance services. We met with a company, McKesson. The issue with this revenue source, as a lot of government programs, it's very labor intensive as far as getting approved and then submitting the annual cost reports. A lot goes into that process. We were able to, the city of Bryan had recently done an RFP and had selected McKesson. We were able to piggyback on Bryan's RFP to work with McKesson to help us get the initial application submitted. I think we're close to being ready to do that. Once that's approved, then annually we will submit our cost reports. McKesson did a first-year look at our revenue. We spent, or lost, I guess would be a better term, about $870,000 on money that we couldn't recover from uninsured and from Medicare patients. So the state program will reimburse 58.69% of that loss. You see that's about a little over $500,000, but then of course Texas, the state, takes out about 25% of that as their share. And then the contract with McKesson, their fee is 8% of that. So based on that, that would be additional revenue coming into the city of about $350,000. So once we're hoping to be approved this year to where we will be eligible for money, maybe for August and September. It may just be September, so it would be 1 month of that revenue. Then next year, we're looking at around $350,000 of revenue. So that might be a revenue source that we could fund those additional captain positions for in the future. If you have any questions, or we have Ricky here today, Chief Reeves, sorry. If anybody wants more detail, he's obviously much more up to speed on this program.
Is there anything under the new Affordable Care Act, since the law proposes everyone must have, as you said, insurance? Is there anything on Affordable Care Act that would allow us to tap some of that penalty that they are assessed if they don't have it?
Currently, there's not for EMS. What this program is money from 1115 waiver from the Social Security Act with some of that money from ACA that is passed down to the state to help reimburse municipalities to cover some of the costs for providing service. So in a roundabout way, we're getting some of that money, but it's not directly tied to the ACA and the penalty phase of the recovery.
So how do cities operate that don't run an ambulance service?
A lot of times, I worked in the city of Lubbock one time, and there was a medical district in that city where they paid an additional tax that operated their ambulance service. So it varies by community. Most communities in the Metroplex have operate a city ambulance EMS operation.
Okay, then the next program change we want to talk about is in the police department. It's the Premier Neighborhood Police Service. This dovetails nicely with the 2025 plan for the Big Move Thriving Neighborhoods. This money would provide the police department with 1,687 hours of overtime. And this overtime would be used for officers, give Chief Kerbo the flexibility to assign officers on an as-needed basis. Some of the examples that he would use the money for would be neighborhood traffic enforcement, when you have neighborhood complaints, school zone enforcement. He could also use it for targeted hotspots. An example of that, when we had the graffiti in Old Town, they set up surveillance for many hours. This allows them to do that with overtime instead of having to pull officers from the street, reducing them to minimum staffing, which reduces that police presence. It also allows him to have that presence in the neighborhood where the officers are seen. In addition, every time we do a special event, that takes a lot of police services, and they often have to pull those off the street to do that. This would supplement that so that they wouldn't have to go down to minimum staffing on those days. And it also gives us some officers to assign in our sports complexes during big events, Railroad Park, those type things. Eric?
Okay, another 2025 big moves 4 and 5, actually, Thriving Neighborhoods, is the Neighborhood Services Coordinator. This position we're excited about. This position will be housed with Cleaves Group, although it will be very representative of nearly every department in the city. Very visible position up front where the rubber meets the road, as you speak, so to speak, working with the various neighborhoods, working with citizens, working with corporate citizens, working with staff out there, very visible, extroverted type person. They're going to have to be because they're going to be very busy. They'll have a lot of roles and a lot of tasks. One will be to go into the neighborhoods, and this is not just residential, this will be commercial as well, but to go in and use some of the data that building inspection and code enforcement is already doing and utilize the neighborhood grading system and categorize those areas into categories, whether it's preservation, conservation, or rehab, and then to develop strategies and goals to either improve those, maintain those, or transform those, whichever that may be. They'll also be working with various other agencies, code enforcement, fire prevention, health, police, fire, to go into those neighborhoods and deal with what those citizens want dealt with or what they want their neighborhood to be. They'll also help create a sense of neighborhood to those neighborhoods that want it. Example, if Lakeland Terrace wanted to try to formulate an informal HOA, this position would be very instrumental in doing that, in taking some of that activity and maybe putting it into street sign topper programs, entry feature programs to give that neighborhood some identity and some buy-in and some improvements. They'll be working with the grant staff to go out to the neighborhoods to introduce some programs to incentivize improvements for fencing or for facades or for other residential or commercial type things to improve the overall look and feel of that neighborhood. They'll be very instrumental in working with the Board of Realtors and other community organizations such as LISD, DCTA, HOAs, OTBA, to see what they're doing and to try to bring about what the city's doing to make those things better. So we're excited about this position. We are ready to go. I think Cleve's got a lot of good ideas along with the other departments, and I think you'll be seeing this person very busy.
Where's the clicker?
So I'll talk a little bit about social service agency funding. In the general fund, this amounts to $170,000. This is different from your CDBG funding that's located in the grant fund, so this is in addition to that. This is allocated by that same CDBG committee, but this is the funding that you see annually in your general fund budget. Couple of changes there, but primarily the same organizations are applying and receiving funding for 14-15. Then that's kind of the revenue and expenditure detail. I'll talk a little bit about the fund balance. You'll see your beginning fund balance is at $28.8 million. The estimated ending fund balance for the current fiscal year is at $28.2 million. So even though we've talked about our revenue being up $2 million, you're seeing a little bit of a decrease in your fund balance there. And that's primarily due to the expenditures that we've done out of reserves this fiscal year. So you'll see that number at $6 million, and primarily, you know, you budgeted some of that, and then we also did a few supplemental expenditures, including the $1.75 million land purchase. We did the fire station 2 improvements. The annex HVAC was something that was originally budgeted, but those are kind of your major ones. We also did a Central Park ADA improvements for $405,000. So that's why you're seeing a decrease in your fund balance a little bit. And then your 14-15 fund balance is projected to be $26.4 million. And that is due to some of the transfers out of reserve that we'll talk about on the next couple of slides. Our reserves out of, our spending out of reserves total $1.7 million for 14-15. That includes $1.7 million for transfers out and $57,000 at one time. These are detailed on page 18 of your budget. The one-time expenditures are for our economic development agreements that we budget annually out of the reserves. This amount varies greatly every year depending on what agreements have been put in place and also who's meeting the requirements and kind of who we think we're actually going to be paying. In 14-15, we have the list there for you to see. The bulk of the transfers out here of $1.7 million include the Fred Herring Rec Center HVAC for $600,000. Those things are very expensive. We're doing one this current fiscal year at the annex we talked about for $800,000. I think there's another one on the horizon for about $400,000 coming up for next year. So those things are huge and they are needing replacement.
And we find if we don't move to replace these systems, what happens is we have to continually put very expensive Band-Aids on them. So we've made a decision to try to go on and replace those that are older. The Fred Herring system is how old, Carol?
It's over 20 years old.
Over 20 years old, so time to replace.
So these are really the large non-routine expenditures. Several of them are related to technology. You'll see those total to about $462,000 there. And those include your transfers out of reserves.
Can you go back one slide? The one where it says Huffines Plaza, is that the old Huffines Shopping Center, or is that the Huffines development down by the railroad?
I believe that's a shopping center. Is that correct, Nika?
So we need to change that, right, because it's no longer Huffines Plaza. Okay.
Was that it?
Yeah, that was it. I just wanted to see which one was for.
Okay. We did want to talk to you a little bit about your fund reserve requirements. Our current policy right now is that we reserve 15%. We have asked our, we've gone to a couple of conferences recently that have talked about the importance of keeping a financial reserve in the 20 to 25% range. We looked at our average survey cities, they're at 20%. We've also talked to our financial advisors for Southwest, and they recommend a strong fund balance reserve at 20%, an even better one would be at 25%. So ours is currently at 15%, and what we're wanting you to kind of think about is increasing that to either 20 or 25%, knowing that our actual fund balance reserve is at 38% right now. So even though our policy says 15%, we've not kept it as low as 15% in the entire time I've been here. In fact, it's been closer to 40% most of the time. So really, we're asking you to kind of put into policy what we've had a practice of doing, and that's just to be more conservative in how we handle our reserves. We do have a 20% on the sales tax funds that we currently have, our 4B, our crime control, our fire services, because those are more volatile, as the sales tax is a little bit more volatile. So we put those in place, I guess, 3 years ago, but we haven't done so for the general fund.
The different rating agencies do look at this differently. Moody's, it has not rated us over the last several years, but Moody's really does want to see a 25 to 30% fund balance. Now, S&P and Fitch are probably more in the 15 to 20% range. We had some long discussions, as Gina said, with First Southwest, and I would recommend you go to a 20%. You could consider 25. I talked earlier about some of the demands that will be on the council over the next few years, and land acquisition is certainly one, and your general fund excess reserve is your best resource for the type of property acquisition that we may have to look at in relation to I-35.
So the impact of doing a reserve change in your policy shows on this following graph, where your fund balance actually stays the same. The operating reserve would increase based on if it was 15, 20, or 25, and so your excess reserve would decrease accordingly. So that just kind of shows you what you would have, how your fund summaries would look in the general fund if you were to change that reserve policy. We have the final note there that obviously Vision 2025 is going to have impacts, land acquisition being one of those. Technology investments are there and can consume your excess reserve fairly quickly. So we just kind of wanted you to have that in mind as you're making your decisions on your tax rate and what you're going to fund this fiscal year.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go back to the slide again, please. So Donna, if I'm understanding you, currently we're at 15%. You're recommending we go to 20?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I thought. I saw the 38%, but then I noticed the 15 is what we currently have as policy.
Yes.
You recommend we up that policy? to
I'm
20%?
recommending that you up this policy. We're a AAA bond-rated
Right.
city. We don't want to do anything
Right.
to jeopardize that. So
Okay.
20% would be the minimum I would recommend.
Okay.
Is First Southwest recommending a time horizon for when this should happen?
They haven't in particular, but I would say since we're looking at a potential GO bond election, you'd want to have that in place.
And with us having currently 38%, there wouldn't be anything other than legally changing it from 15 to 20%. You wouldn't need any additional
That's correct.
funding or anything.
Policy.
That's correct. We'd bring a policy statement to you and
Right.
have you approve the policy statement, and then that's what we would send to the rating agencies.
The only downside is it ties our hands a little bit from a financial flexibility standpoint,
Right,
if
but you
an
still got
opportunity shows up.
18%. Right.
Yeah, okay, okay.
And I think our, as Ms. Barron just said, I think our AAA rating
Yeah, you
is
don't wanna
much
touch
more,
Valuable?
valuable, thank you very much. It's much more valuable than the 5% reduction in funding would be when you look at the bonds we
Yep.
issue, especially if we're looking at doing a new blue ribbon bond, we're gonna issue more bonds to get that, because now at AAA, you don't have to have the insurance, and it saves us just a lot of money.
Ton of money.
Yeah, and we've, on the last few bond issues we have had, they provide us, the rating agencies provide us some notes about why they substantiated a AAA rating. And some of those notes have been because even though we've had a 15% fund balance requirement, our actual fund balances are much higher. So they are looking at what's above the 15%.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, Gene, I didn't catch it in time. Go ahead.
Okay.
Mayor, we're at a point where the next discussion relates to the tax rate. I don't know if you think it's a good time to take a break.
Yeah, let's take a 10-minute break, please.
I think he's pissed at me.
Stand out in the sun for a
He called a
minute.
couple times, I couldn't talk to him. Now, Finney says he's ready. I said, well, have you talked to him?
I get a kick out of now, I'm sorry. Now I think hospital.
All right.
What were you saying? I'm sorry.
You took care of that.
That's all right, I got, she can't do it, she said, I can't do it.
I'll click for the
Some gruesome has to talk about.
for the mail.
She's never gonna see anybody. They're losing, but I feel for you. She was just falling here. Her mother's there just crying like a baby. You're gonna have to have my patience, man. I know it. Tricked us. Cookies are good. You screwed up.
Mayor, we're going to turn our attention to our tax rate discussion, and Brenda will handle that for us.
Thank you, Donna. As we begin this discussion, it's important for me to remind you that the Texas Tax Code contains the truth of taxation information, which requires the calculation of two rates. One's called the effective tax rate, the other is the rollback rate. The effective tax rate, while it's the calculation can be a little complicated, it is basically the rate that provides the city with the same amount of tax revenues as the previous year on properties that were taxed in both years. Our 2014 calculated effective rate is 0.420954. The rollback rate is the maximum rate allowed without voter approval, and it can be looked at in two components. One is the maintenance and operation rate, which is the money that goes into the general fund. And that rate is what provides the same amount of tax revenue as the previous year on those same properties, plus an 8% increase. So it allows for an 8% increase over the prior year. Your debt service or your INS rate is just the debt payment you have coming up divided by your property values. So this rate can be as high as necessary to cover your debt, as low. I mean, it fluctuates, and there's no restrictions on how much it can fluctuate. After calculating these two rates and approval by this governing body, we will be providing a notice to taxpayers, part of that truth in taxation requirement. In prior years, the effective rate, you saw a notice in the newspaper concerning it and on our website and our TV station. And then there were two other notices when the proposed rate that you wanted to adopt was going to be higher than the lower of the effective rate or the rollback rate, which something that's very surprising to everyone is for some reason there's been a change in the tax law. Local Government Code 140.010 was added effective January 1st of this year, and it requires one notice, a simplified form. The prior notices had 14 lines of various information about your tax base, your tax rate, last year's tax rate, and amounts. But this simplified notice is basically just this information. It will state, and this is what you'll see in the newspaper and on the TV station and on our website. It'll state your proposed rate, your preceding last year's tax rate, the effective tax rate, the rollback rate. It'll have contact information there, and it will give the two hearing dates if we do propose a rate that is higher than the effective or rollback rate.
This is really shocking to me that the state came back with a simplified form. This is one of the most positive things that came out of the last legislative session. I know.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. It'll go away.
So your 2014-15 budget property tax values, you see your total assessed is just shy of $9 million. Your over 65 and freeze is $269 million. Properties under protest this year, $151 million. The total taxable value is $7.5 million. And with our tax increments, both of them have increased, the TIF 1 and TIF 2, $149 million. That brings us to our net taxable value of $7.383. New improvements was a little over $130 million. And a ratio that we kind of watch or look for is how much of that increase was attributed to just those properties taxed in both years that were reappraised at a higher value this year. And that's 223 million of the increase, about a 3% of your total net taxable value. So, go. Sure.
A Rudy question, but the over 65 freeze with the graying population, is that number on the rise?
Yes, it has been for several years, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
The property tax value comparison we're looking at here, you see your certified net taxable value last year was 6.874. The last supplemental we received on those, which just represents, this time last year, you had a certified value and you had properties under protest. So those have been settled, and the last supplement, the last final value on those was the 6.922 billion, sorry. And then the 2014-2015 certified is the 3.83 billion, a 7.4% increase over our certified last year, and a 6.65% increase over the last year's last value, final value, taxable value.
And Rudy, I would think this is one of the highest increases we've seen in a number of years.
Yeah.
I didn't get the question, I'm sorry.
I was just making a statement. This is one of the largest increases we've seen in a number of years, and I'm sure you saw it countywide.
Don't get used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't. That's a good point. Don't get used to it.
You can see those new construction, which is really telling there at the very bottom. Last year, we had 53 million of new construction. This year, over 130 million, a 145% increase, and that's one that we won't get used to either. Property tax value history, just like Donna was alluding to, you can see the rise there at the end between 2014, 2015, that's your 7.4% increase that we're experiencing. The last year that was higher than that is the 2007, 2008 year right there. That increase was 13.04%. So that's the last time we had that kind, a bigger increase than what we're seeing this year. The tax base, you can see there, when we look at it by category, you see that the single family there has increased about 8%, multifamily over 20%, commercial just shy of 5%, and your business personal property there 8%. And that's the volatile number we really watch. You know, it's property that's mobile. It's inventory that can be here this year and gone next year. So this is a number that we really don't count on as well to happen every year as well.
In fact, it was interesting this year when we got the roll from Dallas. We actually saw this huge spike, and it was a company we found out who owned helicopters. So it's their corporate office, so we got credit for all their helicopters.
Yeah, in fact, I called Dallas Central Appraisal District because it was in there. It's the few properties we have over there in that area. And they cautioned me that there were methods that they could have chosen to bring that value way down. There's something on the commercial side. Rudy probably knows this well, a lot better than I do. There's also, when it comes to aircraft, you can allocate the amount of time it's here as opposed to flying somewhere else. They didn't do that this year. So, but all proper notices were given. One was protested, but it was settled. So we know that's a for sure number. And the other one, they haven't heard from them. And so hopefully when they get their tax bill in January, they may take steps next year to get that property value down and not pay so many taxes.
Uh-oh. We have a blank slide.
That's our property tax rate history. I have to look at it.
Yeah, I'll just.
You have to look at your
I-
handout.
Yeah,
Some
look
reason
at your
this is-
handout. On this slide, you'll see what it was, is the property tax rate history. Just to paraphrase what you're probably seeing in your handout. We've been at 44 cents for quite a number of years. Back in 06, 07, that's when we were at .45679. So it's been very steady several years. And then our property tax rate survey cities, we are number 2 on the lowest of of our survey cities, just Grapevine below us. So we are in a good position in the region for our 44 cents that we have. And just as a side note, every cent of our 44 cents gives us 745,000 roughly of tax revenues, each cent. So that'll help you when you're trying to decide your rate. So the effective and rollback rates, officially, your adopted rate this last year was 44.44021. The total effective rate that you'll see in that notice will be 0.420954, and the rollback rate will be 0.450787. We like to give you just a few options here. There's obviously several options you could choose, but we picked the most common that we think that you might be interested in. The top one there, sure.
I've got a family emergency. I'm gonna have to leave. We don't have another meeting posted, so we will just have to adjourn since we don't have a quorum now, which we didn't want to inconvenience anyone, but we don't have a quorum, so we will have to adjourn. Legal, I'll leave it up to you to get another meeting posted, and we'll continue the budget at a later time.
We are adjourned. We will reschedule the budget workshop at a later date.